وللناس حب لطول البقاء.
بسم الله الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And good evening. I start in the name of Allah. All praise is for Him, a bounteous, a never-ending praise, a praise to fill the heavens and the earth. And may peace and blessings always be upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How I came to revert to Islam, inshallah. Before I give many personal details, there's a couple of topics I just want to talk about very quickly that I think are relevant and that you may agree. First, I'd like to talk about the difference between being born a Muslim and reverting to Islam and accepting Islam later on of your own free will. When you were born, you were not born with any personal values. And none of us had, when we were babies and infants, acquired any morals, values, or any kind of understanding about anything whatsoever. Our personal values were yet to be developed, and as we grow and as we are taught by our parents or our guardians, and we learn, a lot of the personal morals and values we take from them. Those who teach us, their values and their morals become our values and our morals that we use when we are children, and that become our foundation as we grow up and even as we're adults. But as an infant, you can do little more than submit to the fact that you are in constant need. Submit to the natural course, which is that babies and infants, they can't survive without their parents. And as I said, the brain of an infant, it doesn't know any better anyway. It hasn't been developed enough. The baby does not have a free will. For those who have children, you probably don't hear your child say, I don't want any more breast milk, I want some Diet Coke or something. And this crib that you're putting me in is very boring, I want you to take me to the movies or something. No, they don't say things like this, of course. But as the infants develop these personal values from their parents or guardians, it's the free will that gets in the way. And as we get older, just as often as not, this free will, it can be used to make the wrong choice, just as easily as the correct choice regarding anything. And a little bit more about that later on, inshallah. So if your parents or your guardians who raised you or practicing Muslims, for those of you that that's the case with, then the personal values that you learned, if you realize or not, they were structured by Islam, and Islam becomes your foundation. It structures how you think, how you act, even your attitude and your personality. For those not born Muslim like me, who have investigated Islam, Islam proves itself to be a light of guidance. I'm sure you all agree. It proves that it has clear solutions to all of life's questions or problems or differences. We were not raised in a structured or proven lifestyle as Islam is. No, we were given some what you'd call so-called basics from our parents, or some incomplete fundamentals by our parents, which we always assumed these were universally correct. The way we see things is probably the way things really are, we thought. And at the very least, we thought they were good enough to get by. Those of us who are not born into Islam, that is. So we were left with nothing more than these ways of our parents to deal with all that life gives us. As for that emptiness that you feel, or the feeling that maybe something is missing, or you have some unanswered questions, well, you were taught that this is just naturally, you see, a part of life. And you learn to suppress it and hide it in the back and pretend it's not there. Also, as I'm sure many of you who have looked at this would agree, with the way that so many children spend their time today, they fill their lives with activities and fun like video games, movies, TV, internet, this kind of thing, which the non-Islamic society provides so constantly and abundantly, it becomes very, very easy to develop a pattern since you're a child where you don't even take the time to look at the world around you or investigate the world around you. And most individuals, they're washed away. Washed away in a non-stop barrage of these activities to fill your life. Until you reach a certain age and you start to lose interest in all these fleeting things, and you realize that those same feelings of something missing, all those unanswered questions that you always had, they're still there. You just haven't looked at them for a while because you were too busy. It is a memory of these exact feelings that I just described. This emptiness or something is missing, a memory of a life that was led according to your own whims or your own fleeting desires, which can lead you anywhere if you don't believe it. A memory of a life which is led by trial and error, your own way, 6 billion own ways, and a disattached life with so much confusion and doubt and guessing. This is the life that you leave behind when you grasp that handhold that never breaks, that can't break, it will never break, and that's Islam. Alhamdulillah. From all that you find purpose and peace and meaning to your life. No matter what age you embrace Islam, don't think it's too late if you're investigating Islam, that you're too old for all this or anything like that. No matter what age. And you gain the understanding that the purpose of life is universal. It becomes very clear. And that no, we are definitely not following 6 billion individual purposes. Because that would be crazy. So yes, Islam is in fact a detailed map of our lives. It's a manual for our life. And how much easier is it to do anything when you have a manual? If you pick up a recipe book and you see a picture of a chocolate cake, and you see the list of ingredients, and you see the list of steps to follow, and you follow them, and you get a chocolate cake, are you surprised? No. I'll give you a few details about my life. If I hear any snoring, I'll know that I'm boring. I, like so many, was not born Muslim. In fact, I was not born into any religion at all. Nothing. I was born in a suburb of New Jersey, which is referred to by those who know as the armpit of the world. And if you've lived there, you probably can guess why. In the 70s. And I moved to a rural section, a country section of New York, which is outside of the city, at the age of 2. My family was very poor. We lived in a trailer on property which used to be a farm. So you had barns and silos and this kind of thing. In a place like this, without TV, we weren't raised with any TV or video games, movies, nothing. We learned to occupy ourselves, and we learned how to pass the time and keep busy as children by spending time outdoors with nothing more than nature to keep you entertained, or maybe a few chickens. And you know how entertaining chickens are. I don't know how entertaining chickens are. So without the constancy of all that digital entertainment and the noise and the pace of that life that you grow up with when you are born in the suburbs or raised in the suburbs or the urban lifestyle, living in the way that I did allowed for a more subdued childhood. So what this means is that I was allowed to contemplate my surroundings. Of course, on a child's level, I was no genius or anything like that. Just to be able to look around and start to get a feel for maybe some of the things that are happening around me. And while these effects, these positive effects of my childhood were not lost altogether, like the calmness I felt, my decisions when I grew up and became a teenager, they covered up some of the light that Allah had put in my heart as a boy because of the decisions that I made. It's just that without structure or purpose, it doesn't matter what benefits you have. Almost all of us will fall prey to making bad choices or following bad paths that have been made to look good. When you look at them, when you look to investigate them, you don't find any problem with them. They look like they're appealing, they look like there's nothing wrong. From about the age of 18, I pursued a number of varied lifestyles, you might say. Initially, I took up skydiving. I don't know if you know what that is. Jumping out of a plane. Thinking that this kind of thrill of near-death experience might bring some feeling of purpose for me to life. Or at least fitting in with that crowd, was everybody likes to fit in. If you don't know what kind of crowd the skydiving crowd is, you have every kind of person. You have businessmen, you have hippies, you have mothers, you have young, old, all that kind of people. The one thing they all have in common, of course, is they need adrenaline. These people, they think that the monotony and the boredom and the routine of living between Monday and Friday can only be dealt with or rationalized if you try to kill yourself on the weekend. And of course, that's not enough. You have to get drunk every night on the weekend too. And after passing a summer living in that kind of lifestyle of heading towards Earth at 500 kilometers an hour, I said that, and living all the abuses that they live, of course, all that it entails to be living the skydiving lifestyle, if you want to call it that, I said that this is not a lifestyle that had any truth to it, and I'm going to look somewhere else. A few boring jobs that everyone would go through, and the next thing I did was go into the Navy. In the United States, of course. This is all taking place in the United States. And of course, that's all it took for me to realize that this life, there's not really much truth in here. This is serving some function, and I don't want to really follow it. So after that, I moved back to New York and became involved with a small group of African musicians from Senegal in West Africa. I don't know if any of you know that place. At the core of the lifestyle of these African musicians was the drug marijuana. And as weeks and months became years, I became very, very addicted to this, to the extent that I was never not under the influence, ever. In case you don't know the mentality of the people that are addicted to this drug, it's that it rationalizes and vastly improves your life. That's what they think. By this point, my general attitude towards life was that I was above the concerns of all the crowds, and that through my varied experiences, which I thought were so great and so many, that I had taken away some kind of truth to all the little different lifestyles that I had seen. And that I was in some sort of privileged position, maybe, to have lived a sufficient number of ways to have some kind of outsider's look at all the people who are living these lifestyles, and even people living life in general. Which meant that I thought the way I was living, being under the influence of marijuana 24 hours a day, was the best life, if you can imagine that. What I failed to realize, of course, was that the motivating factor that drove me to look from lifestyle to lifestyle in the first place was trying to find truth or meaning. And that what I couldn't find in one lifestyle made me look to the next. And that what this drug had done, all it had done, was to cover me up. Just like many people are covered up. What are they covered up by? All the distractions that life gives you, so that you stop looking, you stop seeking, you don't want to know the truth anymore. You just get caught up in your day-to-day life. And like I said, this pattern goes along to you don't realize. So many years pass. And as I said, this peace that I was feeling, or I thought I was feeling, was chemically achieved. And my problems and emptiness and unanswered questions were chemically forgotten. In the midst of all this falseness and mental fog, I had the opportunity to travel to that country of Senegal, where the general atmosphere there is so different. If anybody's from some of those countries that resemble Senegal at all, I haven't traveled too much in Africa, but just the general way that people live life there, the falseness of so many of the beliefs that you're given when you live in a place like Australia or America or Europe, you see these things in their true light. What I mean is that the people there, they're so happy just to have some food or water or a roof over their head that they don't care they're living in a little shack. And we were getting worried and mad because of what stupid thing. So, over there, one of the first mornings I was there, about 5 in the morning, after hearing some goats and chickens and other things in the morning, I was already awake anyway, I heard a noise which sounded a little bit like this. Forgive me, I'm not a very good, but Allahu Akbar, which of course is the adhan. And as you can imagine, your heart is touched. My heart was touched by that. When you hear this in the morning, you've already seen just a little bit of how life is different here, and then you hear this, you can imagine. When I returned to America, I had developed an interest in some of these customs. I was a little ignorant at the time, as you've understood from what I've said, so I didn't understand that a lot of these things were not Senegalese customs, they were actually Islamic customs that were mixed into the Senegalese culture. And out of pure interest, I happened to memorize a book of prayer, the whole prayer, just for interest. Alhamdulillah, no credit to myself. And I happened to find a book of some Islamic invocations. But as time passed in America, as any of you who have traveled to some place that had an effect on you, even those of you who have been to Hajj or something like this, the freshness and the closeness of those feelings that you feel, they start to fade a little bit. And I sank back into that lifestyle that I was living before. And the most funny thing of all is that throughout all those experiences of hearing the adhan and learning the salah and these things, I still had not given up smoking that drug. Finally, after some more time passed, I quit smoking, alhamdulillah. I studied a profession called scuba diving, which you probably know, taking people underwater, and traveled and wound up in an island called Harbor Island in the Bahamas. And I want to tell you very briefly about this island so that you never go there. This place is 5 kilometer long island and it's 1 kilometer wide. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the Caribbean Sea. For those of you who don't know where the Bahamas are, it's an island nation in the Caribbean. This island is completely Christian. It's also a party island. The average mentality of the people there, the people who are there, they're tourists. They're here to get drunk. When I wake up to go to work at 7 in the morning, I'm passing somebody, he's on his 2nd beer. Or maybe he's on his 15th beer from last night, he hasn't gone to bed yet. So, because of my weakness, again, I sank back into the way these people are living. Also, no offense to anybody, but a lot of the women who traveled to this place came there only to meet some fantasy Rastafarian, Bahamian man on a horse or something like this. And so there was lots of fornication there as well. So when I wasn't working, I was under the influence either of alcohol or that drug or both. And then later, even while I was working, can you imagine being 40 meters underwater under the influence of something? You're in a big mess. After so much of this kind of abuse, for any of you who have been unfortunate enough to live a life like this, you feel that you like to take a break sometime to clear your head from all these things you're putting into your body. And so from time to time, I would just stop smoking, stop drinking for a few days. Towards the end of my time on this island, it occurred to me that I had abused myself to such a point that I needed a little more than just one of these couple-day purges. So I decided I was going to do a loose resemblance of the Islamic fast, which meant, even though I was not a Muslim, that I saw some value in not drinking, not smoking, not eating, no fornication or anything like this. For 10 days, I decided. So, by about the 3rd day or so, I realized that I had been living with a feeling that I had taken from Senegal, from hearing the adhan, from learning a little bit about Islam. I had acquired a copy of the Quran through travels and things, and I had a Quran even in the house, which I read from time to time. Still not a Muslim, of course, but I realized that these things that you think you need so much, they don't help you, they hurt you. And by about the 4th day, I said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I did not go back to smoking or drinking, just stopped right away. Alhamdulillah, no credit to me. That's from Allah only. The problem was, like I said, this island is in the middle of nowhere. There's no Muslims there. So who's going to take shahada for me? No one. So I had to pray. I didn't know how to pray. What do I know about Islam? Hardly anything. But I take shahada with Allah as my witness. And I just try to live the best kind of Islamic lifestyle I can live for a couple of months. I had the opportunity to fly to the capital island of Nassau in the Bahamas, where there was one mosque in the entire nation, one mosque and about 20 Muslims, and took proper shahada, and alhamdulillah, I actually took nikah and shahada on the same day, and the woman who I had met in the Bahamas took shahada with me on the same day, alhamdulillah. Since then, alhamdulillah, we've been living as practicing Muslims been blessed with a child, alhamdulillah, and the differences are very clear. And if you think that a person can take shahada in some island in the middle of the ocean where people drink and do every kind of reckless behavior all day long, and I have nothing to motivate me for Islam there, I have nothing, nobody who's living even close to this. If you can take shahada in a place like this, again, this is no credit to me. It's not like I'm a special person or anything. That was from Allah only. If you can take shahada there, this proves that Allah picks you for Islam. You do not pick Islam.